Okay, so in the last tutorial, let's fire this up here. I still left the sun back there, or sorry, the sky. I made the sun disappear below the horizon, right? So let's just go back and I'm gonna select my sky dome, and I could put it on a layer. I'm just gonna hide it. Let's go back to our little render. So I'm gonna treat this as a scene that doesn't really have any sky. One thing we'll probably end up noticing on the side here, I'm going to get a little more grain, just because there's not that much light coming into the scene. There's lots of little tricks, lighting tricks. I could keep the sunlight there, but make it invisible to the camera, things like that. I'm going to cover that basically for the Walker tutorial. Really what I'm interested here is, the light is coming in and it's hitting the ground, it's bouncing and it's illuminating here. But there aren't a lot of objects in the scene to bounce around. So like the shadow back here is a little dark, right? Yeah, you can even see this here. So what I'm gonna try to do is just play with the lighting by adding a couple different area lights to the scene, just to play for dramatic effect. So I have this one, it's kind of this general spotlight. I'm gonna go ahead and create a second one. And I can just position it, right? Let's make that a little smaller. I can just do this by hand, if I want to. Another way you can do this is if you go up to panels, you can say look through selected. So we use panels where we go up to perspective, and here are the various cameras, right? Perspective, which I'm looking through, and the Uber camera that I created. But I also, with the object selected, I can say look through that selected object. So right now I am in the light, right? It even says AI area light number 2 down there. So if I want to, this is a great way I find to kind of position some lights in the scene. So I don't know, I'm just gonna do that, and I'm gonna remember to go back into perspective, very important, because if I get the light where I want it to be, I don't want to keep moving it, right? So if I get out of that, there we go. So I have this little light here. And I'm gonna make it big because I really don't want a hard shadow from it. And let's just go to my, let's just say perspective camera as I'm tweaking this. And I'm gonna go, I used a slightly warm little light here. I'm going to go to the temperature that we talked about. Remember, lower numbers like 2000 would be kind of an orange. We can even see that temperature right there without seeing the light on. But I'm gonna use something that's a little blue. Crank this if I want to. It kind of bottoms out at a certain point. It doesn't really change too much more. With exposure, just a little bit. Let's try 7, right? So you can see here that I have the light's not visible. I could make it visible. The light's not visible, but I'm just trying to add to the scene as if there's some little invisible blue light that's adding, and you can see the shadow now is a little more interesting. I can actually see the texture that's on the ground, right? So let's just, I'll just turn this on and off. There's other ways to do this where we could toggle different lights to see what they're doing. But you can see it adds a little bit of drama there, right? I'm kind of down with that as a way to kind of illuminate this, the pillar a little bit. So this is a little more active in the scene. Also too, if I'm looking through the Uber camera, I want to make sure this looks good. Oh, I really like the blue here, right? And we have the little spotlight on it. I don't know, maybe just a couple lights are gonna be a good deal. Let's see what happens. You can see the light. I don't know if this will work or not, but let's go ahead and try. Let's get creative here. So remember when you put these lights in there, it's kind of dependent on your scene. So let's go back to this. So right now this works really well at the top, right? I have this nice little blue light on it. It has a little highlight. It's lit up, I can see it. I can see all the geometry that's in it. And if I go back here, it adds a little bit here so that just doesn't become kind of dead and black. It's a little bit here. Maybe I would want to add another light to lighten that up. Maybe I want to duplicate that blue light and focus in a little area. One thing is, it comes out here from the background in the blackness. I think what I might want to do is create like a colored light, something that's really orangey maybe, and put it off camera so that it's casting that into the scene. We don't really get a sense of like, well, where's this orange light coming from? Well, we don't need to know, right? It's just this amorphic kind of stage in the scene. So let's go ahead and, I'll just create another one, easy enough, so I can repeat this little process, right? So panels, panels look through selected. And now I'm looking through this light. And what I'm going to do is position it off here. It's kind of this mysterious, who knows what light. And I always think lighting is almost like sculpture. Let's go back to my Uber camera. Right, so we'll start looking through the scene. Look at that, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I just want to position that slightly. I don't want to see really the edge of the stage if I can get away with it. So maybe what I'll do is, let's go back to the perspective view and see where I've got this. Oh yeah, it's right there. If I can use my hotkeys correctly. It's been a long day. All right, let's go back to the Uber camera. Ooh, see, I like that a little bit. So we are getting a little bit orange here. Lots of different things. These lights, they're so versatile. In fact, I'm just gonna turn the samples to 2. I got a feeling I'm gonna need them. Let's put a little bit of warmth in there. Maybe we could just go up so you can see that's just these numbers. You have to be sensitive when you're using the exposure. But I think that's working really well. It's hitting the ball. I certainly like what it's doing to the scene. This is great, right? Look at that. So you can see now I'm playing with lightness, but I'm also playing with temperature, right? There's this blue over here. This is orange. I use kind of a default white. That has a little bit of warmth to it. But all this just, I think, adds to the feel, right? I mean, if you can animate a scene and you can get a sense of the temperature, well, that's kind of nice, right? So I think that's working. It's a little more lively. Why is it coming out of the darkness over here? Oops, sorry. Is my Uber camera really set right there? Maybe I wanted to tweak that and I missed something. We'll see. Rolls in. Yeah, I think that'll work. I really like it on these last 2 shots. I'm not as keen on it, maybe here. And I could always animate that. Maybe I don't want that light to be on in that beginning shot, or maybe I turn it down a little bit. So you can animate the lights, I guess, I don't guess. You can animate the lights if you want to. There's even light linking that you could do. I'm not going to show that right now, but just for future knowledge, you could turn around and tell a certain light it's not allowed to see a certain object, right? Boy, I can't help it. I want to tweak this a little bit. I love when it comes out of the darkness here with that orange, but maybe I just need to tone that down a little bit. Where's that area light number 3? Let's do like 8.2. I don't know. 8.3. So much little testing that goes on with lights to really make it work. And I'm going to go back to this. Let's go to the top view here. That's working okay. So let's go back to Uber camera. The other thing I could try with this, let's go ahead and turn it back up just a little bit. Ooh, I feel like that's just so much better. Let's see what we get. Right? Who knows what this little orange light is over on the side? You saw that a second ago. You saw this crazy blur that happens right here. So we are using the Uber camera, and the Uber camera is moving from one position where one camera was to the next one, just for ease of rendering, right? So when I think I've discussed in class, after I render all these out, pay no attention to my family sending messages. On these, I'm just going to edit out these frames, right? So, normally we would render camera 1, camera 2, camera 3, and then we would assemble it all. But just for simplicity in our freshman level animation course, that Uber camera does most of the work for us. But I am using just a little bit of motion blur. Oh, that's the other thing too. If you are going to use motion blur, I should have said this in the other one maybe. If you do enable motion blur, I would recommend a length of 0.2. The default is 0.5, which I find, especially for the ball and its rotation, to be just too much. Right? So I leave that up to you, but that's what my recommendation would be. Sometimes it just blurs too much and you get some awkwardness. All right, let's see, 10 minutes, almost 11 minutes. I think that's going to be a nice little setup. If I wanted to, I could go back and play with the idea of let's turn that. You can see I do have the sun over there, but there's a real drama now without seeing that background, right? It's just the stuff that's being illuminated in the front, which I think that's pretty exciting. It's also a good way too, where now we start learning how we have to put all these lights in here to try to fill in the space so it's a little more interesting. We could keep going with this. I could put some crazy blue spotlight off to the side coming in, make things a little dramatic at the very top, all kinds of things. The other thing we haven't really talked about is, there are different types of lights as well. We haven't really talked about classes, and talked about this in the class, but we can take objects and turn them, the object itself, into a light. I won't do that here, but maybe I'll save that for a final little tutorial. It's like a little bonus feature somewhere else. All right, let's get back into this. Yeah, I'm totally down with this. You can see the little blue, the warmth. And you can animate these cameras or these lights, right? They're objects, right? So we could tell it to follow an object or move around or change their spotlight feature. In fact, you know what? What would happen if I hid that? Look at this little scene, right? So what if at frame 30, I went to camera number 1, I'm gonna unhide it, right? So that's right there. And the simplest little way to do this, there we go. So we have the exposure of 8, right? So let's say where we want it is it kind of starts to enter the scene in here. I'm going to say frame 75. I'm going to keyframe the exposure, right click key, right? And let's go back here to frame 30. Maybe 40. Let's just say 0. Look at that, a little spotlight announcing the presence of our ball as it rolls up to the pillar. All right, so many things you can do with light to tell a story. Very important. All right, hope you enjoyed.